Kayla with my new studio, and today we are doing our animal cupcake kit. Yes! So if the sticker on your box does not say animal cupcake kit, for example, we also have a zoo animal cupcake kit, but if it doesn't just say animal cupcake kit, no worries, you're probably looking for another video, so go ahead and head back to our YouTube channel and find the video that is titled the same as whatever sticker is on your My Make Studio box. Again, if it says Animal Cupcake Kit, welcome! It's going to be a fun time. We've got to go over some things before we actually decorate our cupcakes, which is a perfect segue into, we need to bake our cupcakes first before we can decorate them. So you have cake mix inside your box, and then the box of cake mix has directions on the back of it. So you can just follow those along and bake your cupcakes. Now if you're like, I don't have stuff to do that, Chayla, well don't worry, because inside your box is also some cupcake liners. It's awesome. And a cupcake pan. I think this is so cool because when I first started decorating, I didn't have any tools or anything. So I love that this comes with it now. So you'll probably need to bake this twice. So go ahead and make your batter, fill this up, bake it, then take them out, and then refill it up and bake them again. But other than that, we do want our cupcakes at least room temperature or slightly chilled. When you're new to cupcake decorating, usually colder cupcakes are a lot easier to work with, especially while you're figuring things out. So if you're a little nervous about it, I would make sure that they're chilled like in the fridge or the freezer for a little bit. But room temperature should be just fine for today. We just don't want them to be fresh out of the oven and hot because fresh warm cupcakes turn our icing into soupy goopy messes and we won't be able to have these cool animal designs if they become a soupy goopy mess. So bake your cupcakes, make sure that they are room temper chilled, and then other than that, some things that you will need is a handy dandy pair of scissors. This is just to cut some things open today. And then I always recommend having some kind of towel, like a hand towel, a kitchen towel, or even a paper towel is totally fine. Just something that we can wipe our fingers on as we go and put our open icing bags on to help keep our workspace a little bit more clean as we do this. And then lastly, go ahead and wash your hands super duper good. Once you've done that, we're ready to get started. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my cupcakes, unbox everything from my box, and then I'm gonna show you how to make some animals today. Alright, so the last thing I'm gonna say before we jump into the decorating is that you have enough stuff to make 2 of each cupcake design today. I'm only gonna be making 1 because I'm just showing you how to do it. But if you would like to make 2 at a time with me, you totally can. Or you can just make 1 set and then when the video is done, go back and make more. Or you can be creative with whatever you have left for your other cupcakes. It's your cupcake kit. I want you to be happy with it. So either way is totally fine. But if you would like to make 2 of each, you have enough stuff to do that. So you can totally make 2 cupcakes at a time along with me if you'd like. But we are going to start with one of my favorite animals of all times. It's probably... ooh, where would it rank? It's probably my 3rd favorite animal, which is a cow. I love cows, you guys. So we're gonna make a cow. So go ahead and pick out whichever cupcake or 2 cupcakes feel like cows to you. I'm going to pick out this one. And then I'm going to take my white icing, take this part off, set it down. We don't want to lose this. It's actually more than a lid, but we'll go over that in a little bit. So I'm just going to set it here for now, just so I know where it is. And then take off the seal. And then it does not matter how you put icing on this cupcake. You can do polka dots. You can do zigzags. You can do swoopy doops or swirly doos. Just whatever feels right for you. I'm just going to do a big swirly doo. We want about this much icing on the cupcake. And then inside your box was a cake spatula. I got green today. I'm excited. Green is my favorite. If you also got green today, yay, I'm tinging you. Ding! If you didn't get green, no worries. We have a bunch of different colors of spatulas. It's completely random which one you get. I personally think that's really fun. So I'm very excited I got green because green is probably my favorite. But I like all the colors. But anyway, when we go to smooth cupcakes out, I personally like to go sideways. But when I go sideways, it's not like a windshield wiper blade. Instead of this, it's more like the beginning of a pirate ship ride. So I actually rock this way and rock this way. as I go back and forth. It's like before the ride gets crazy where it's just like, oh, this is just a big swing. So I put my spatula in the center and I go side to side. And then when I come to the edges, I can scrape off what's on here, back onto my cupcake, and then go the other direction until it's all smoothed out. And then I can take the edge of my spatula and scrape the sides for the hang off. So if you're doing 2 cupcakes at a time, you could then scrape this onto your other cupcake and then put a little more icing on there and smooth it out. And also, if that didn't feel good to you, it is totally okay. Everybody's brains work differently. So another way you can smooth things out, which for me, my brain doesn't like this one very much, but you can put your spatula like this and turn your cupcake around it. And if that doesn't feel good, treat your cupcake like it's a very nervous cat. You've been trying to get its attention all day. It's just jumped in your lap. You gotta pet it. You don't want to freak it out. It's a very light amount of pressure. You can pet your icing in the direction you want it to go. This cupcake does not have to be the most pristine, smoothest cupcake ever, because we're going to be adding a nose and cow spots and eyeballs and ears. So we're not going to see too much of this white color for it to be super noticeable, so don't worry about it being perfect. And then since I'm just doing 1 cupcake instead of 2, I'm going to go ahead and wipe my spatula off so it's ready to go for our next one. But again, if you're doing 2 at a time, you can just scrape that icing that was on there onto your next cupcake and then put some more white and smooth it out. But we are going to go ahead and make our nose. So this is kind of rare. Usually for the decorating videos, we don't start with a cupcake that has fondant, but we're doing it today. So inside our bag of fun, we have 2 different fondants in here. We have a white and a black one. Or not a white, we have 2 different fondants in here. We have red and black. I'm going to take out the red. And then I'm going to leave everything else in the bag for right now, just so I know where it is. But if you want to dump it out on the table, everything is sealed, so you can totally do that. But I want the red one. And then when I cut my fondant open, I like to cut the top off and then slide my scissors down like this so I can unwrap it kind of like it's a candy bar. Now, I also like to have it this way so I remember how to portion it throughout, because we are going to be using our red a few more times. We're actually going to use it on 2 other cupcakes aside from our cows today. But if you ripped it out all in chunks, it's totally fine. I'm going to be showing you how much you need each time. And if this is your first time with fondant, fondant is basically Play-Doh you can eat. So you can like shape it into things and whatnot. And it's really cool. I think it's really cool anyway. But I want about 1/4 of this. So I'm going to cut it off. And I'm going to set this big piece aside. So I'm just going to set it on top of this and put it over here. And then it should be nice and soft, but I like to mush it up with my hands just a little bit, just to kind of get it going. Yeah. Yeah. Ta-da! And then we're going to roll it into a ball. And then we're going to be a little weird. We're going to treat this a little bit like Play-Doh. We're going to slightly tube snake it. So we're not going to make a really long, skinny snake. We're going to leave it pretty rounded, but we want it more tube than it is. It's about like that. And then I'm going to mosquito squash it. And then just curve it a little. Ta-da! And I'm going to put that towards the bottom of my cupcake. Yes! Alrighty, so next I'm going to open up my black icing, and there's going to be a different step now. So there's a little white circle in here. We're going to pop that out, and now our lid is a coupler ring. And if you don't know what a coupler ring is, those are what attach tips to our icing tubes. And I think it is so cool that it comes with that. Like, that is so awesome. So I'm going to remove the seal. There we go. And then inside my bag of fun, I have a package of tips like this. Now, inside your box, there was a little booklet, and on one of the pages of the booklet, it has what each tip is, my twang came out, what each tip is called, and shows a little picture of what they do. But I'm going to be taking out the round one, which is the one that is just a circle. Not the circle spiky one, just the circle. So this tip is really good for writing, typing, or drawing things. So I'm going to put it on my black icing, and then I'm going to set it on top. Take the ring, put it on over it, and twist it on. Now, it doesn't need to be on so tight you can't take it off, but it needs to be on tight enough that if you do this, it doesn't go flying across the room. And I will say that sometimes the tips like to play tag. They're like, no, you can't catch me. No, you can't get me. So you might need to move them around a little bit and apply a little bit of pressure when you're putting this ring on just to get them to sit in place, but they will go on there. But sometimes they just don't want to be caught. And before we do this, I mainly want this ready to go because we're going to jump right into it in a second. But I'm going to go back to my white, pop out the ring, and now I'm going to take out the open star tip, which is the circle with all the spikes. We're going to make our cow's ears. That way, if you want to add spots to the ears, whenever we're doing our spots, we do that all at one time instead of a little bit back and forth. It is this one right here. So circle with the spikes. And I'm going to put it on the white. Yes. So with my cow ears, instead of going like this, I like them like this because when you're looking down at your cupcake, that way they'll be sticking out this way. I just feel like it looks a little nicer when we do it on the side versus doing it on top. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to squeeze in the same spot. I am almost touching my cupcake, but not quite. It's like I'm really trying to irritate my cupcake. Like, I'm not touching you, but I'm like really in its space. That's what I'm doing. So I'm about right here. I'm going to squeeze 1, 2, 3, 4, stop and pull, and do the same thing over here. Yes! Alrighty. So now it is time for spots. So we already have our black icing ready to go, and there is no right or wrong way to do cow spots. However many cow spots you want and where you think they look cute. I personally start by making nostril holes on my nose. Like that. And then I just add random spots. They can be circles. They can be hearts. They can be weird They can be weird paint splatter shapes. Whatever feels right for you and your cow. I usually do a mix of like all of them because that's the kind of person I am. But yes! And then inside our bag of fun, we also have these. So these are perlettes, and if you're like, what is that? They're sixlets, and if you're like, what is that? They are round, fancy M&Ms. They are chocolate balls. And I'm going to use 2 of them for the eyeballs. We could use the black icing, so if you're not a big fan of chocolate, you can just draw the eyes with your black icing instead, but I really like these, so I want to use them for eyes. And the closer you have these together, the more cartoony your cow will look. So I recommend holding it above your cupcake and seeing where you like the eyes. I like them really close together, but I like cartoony things. So if you are like, I want it to look a little less cutesy, just space them out further. It'll give it a slightly different look depending on where you place them. So just hold them above your cupcake and decide where you want to put them. Either way looks really cute, honestly, but I'm going to put them kind of close together and just stick them right in because icing is like glue for all our candies. And now I'm going to add the rest of my spots. I usually put a little bit on the ears too. Yeah. And that's it, you guys. This is so cute. That is our first cupcake. I for real love cows. I love cows so much. So there we go. I'm going to set him aside. So if you're doing 2 at a time, go ahead and finish up your second cow. But we're going to go ahead and move on. And we're actually going to do a bluebird, which is one of my mom's favorite animals. So I'm going to use this one for my bluebird, but it's going to be a little different. So you can take this tip off your white or you can leave it on, but I'm actually going to leave it on this time and I'm going to make a couple poofs. So to make poof, I'm just holding it and doing like the 1-2, like we did with our cow ears, just a little less squeezing. About like this. And then I'm going to open up my blue icing, take off the seal, and I'm only going to put like a dot or two, like a blob or two, I guess, like Hershey Kiss style. I say 2 and I do 3, but like this, which also looks cute. And then I'm going to take my spatula and I'm going to mix this up because I want to create a light blue. So I'm just going to move it and swirl it around back and forth. And then I take some of that blue off. Yes. And then after I've made it a paler shade of blue, I'm going to smooth it out just like we did our cow. And again, we're going to be adding wings and a face and all kinds of stuff to this, so don't worry about it being super duper smooth. Yes! So now I'm going to take my blue icing and I'm going to go back to my icing tips and I'm going to take out the leaf tip. So the leaf tip is the one that looks like a V or an alligator mouth, depending on how you're looking at it. So this one, V, alligator mouth. I'm going to put it on the blue, and then we are going to hold this cupcake like an alligator mouth, but I want to show you something first. Oh, see, here's one. I got to like move it around a little. There we go. So I want to remember where to put my wings. So I'm going to, without squeezing, I'm using the end of my tip right here. You could also use a toothpick instead if you'd like, to draw. It'll kind of look like a tennis ball or baseball. Like that. So I think this one's a little too wide, which is why we're tracing it in, because then I can just move my icing over it and it acts like an eraser, which I think is really cool. And I'm just going to make that a little smaller than what I had it before. So where these two things are is where our wings will go. And then this is where our bird's face will be. So for the wings, I'm up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah! You want to hold it like it's an alligator mouth. Like it's going to throw up icing all over your cupcake. An alligator mouth, so it looks like this. And then squeeze in the same spot. 1, 2, stop and pull back. So 1, 2, stop and pull back. And I'm just going to fill these in with rows of little feathers like that. If you don't stop squeezing when you pull back, it'll be much longer and floppier. So if that's happening to you, just remember stop and pull. And if you're getting a line instead of the same shape I am, it means you're holding it and piping with it like it's a V instead of an alligator mouth. So just turn it like it's an alligator mouth. And then I like to hold it at a slight angle. That's just what's comfortable for me. You can be more level with it if you want, but I feel like when you have this slight angle, you're also able to get under these ones to make the rows a little easier, but it's the same thing. 1, 2, stop and pull. I'm just at this angle instead of like this. I'm gonna go all the way to the edge of the cupcake. So I'm just gonna fill in my other side. Ta-da! So you can leave it like this, but again, I like the cartoony things. So I'm going to add at this angle, so I'm going on the side of my cupcake, not the top of it. I'm gonna add 2 or 3 little feathers, like it's got some hair sticking up. That's just what I like. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. These are your cupcakes. I want you to be happy with them. So if that doesn't feel right for your bird, don't do it. It's totally fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back to my sixlets, which again, if you're not a chocolate fan, you could just use the round tip on your black icing to draw your eyeballs. But I'm going to use the chocolate balls. And it's the same thing with the spacing. I like them close together, but you can space them further apart. Just hold them up to your cupcake and figure out what you like. And now I want to add a beak, and then you could also add some little feet if you want, which I think I'm gonna do today, but it looks cute without feet too. But I'm gonna take the star tip off of my white, and I'm gonna put it on my orange icing. Oh, which will be perfect for our next cupcake. Awesome. And then you can rinse this out in the sink before you put it on the orange if you'd like, or you can just put it on there and squeeze it for a couple of seconds and it'll push all of the old color out. Ta-da! So I'm going to go right under my eyes and do a 1, 2, stop and lift. And you can leave it like that, or you can add 2 more little poofs down here for some little feet if you would like. Totally up to you. And then these ones have a little bit more of a tail than I like, so I'm just lightly like moving them to come to the bottom of the cupcake. But there we go, you guys. We have birds. Tweet, 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 tweet. Alrighty. Well, next we are going to make a cat. So pick out whatever cupcake or 2 cupcakes feel like cats to you. I'm going to use this one. And then I'm just going to do poofs all over this, but I want to show you that you can get a slightly different variation on your poof if you want. So you can just do 1, 2, stop and up, or you can add a slight wrist twist in it while you're squeezing. Whoop. Like you've got a wand, so it's a, not a whoop. So squeeze and twist the wrist, stop and lift. Just gives it a slightly different look. So whichever one you like better, go ahead and cover the whole top of your cupcake in it. Alright. So I have my cupcake like this, and you have options here. You can either do your ears like we did the cow and have your cat's face be like this where you're looking down. I'm personally going to have it to where I can look at my cat's face this way. So I'm going to pick a spot where I want my ears, and I'm going to squeeze in the same spot for probably about 5 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this way, my cat's face will be right here. That's what I like, but again, if you want your face to be more like the cow, to where you've got to look directly at it and more like our bird, just put your ears here instead and maybe squeeze for about 3 seconds instead of 5. That way they don't fall off. And then you guessed it, chocolate balls for the eyes. And it's the same thing. These ones I do place a little further apart. I usually put them right by my ears. It's already cute. I already love it. And then we're going to go back to the red fondant. So we don't need a ton for this one. I'm just going to cut off like a thin sliver. So about this much. And then whenever our fondant has been opened, it starts to air dry. The air makes it stiffer, so we will need to mush it up with our fingers just a little bit. And then we're going to make a nose. So it's up to you what kind of shape you want your cat's nose to be. It could just be a circle, it could be an oval. I'm personally going to shape it like a heart. And what I think is the easiest for shaping a heart, if you don't have like a cookie cutter, and if you're not, you could flatten this and try and freehand it with a stencil. I personally like this way works for me. So I roll into a ball, I take my pincher fingers and I pinch an end of it. I don't usually drop it, but I pinch an end so it kind of looks like a red avocado. And I'm going to boop it just a little bit. So I don't want to flatten it all the way, but I don't want it as round. So boop. And then I'm going to take my scissors to the non-pointed end and cut out a little triangle. And then I'm going to tap the points down, pinch the ends just a little, and I have a heart. So I can hold it up, and I feel like this is a little too big, so I'm actually going to rip some off and just repoint the end of it. And there we go. So you could flatten it out and then take a toothpick and trace a heart shape, or if you have a mini heart cookie cutter, you could flatten it out and cut it out too. But this is the way I like to do it. And then I stick it under my eyes. And then I'm going to add some whiskers. So I'm going to go back to that black icing with the number 4 and just put some whiskers on the side of my nose. Yes. You could add little nose holes or a little smile if you wanted. Totally up to you, but I am happy with this. So there's our kitty cats. Meow. Dang, we're moving through these animals today. Alrighty, so next, I think we should make a sheep. I think we should get our sheep out of the way. So pick out whatever cupcake feels like a sheep to you. I'm going to do this one. And then I'm going to put the white icing down, but we don't need a lot. So I'm probably just going to do about this. And then I'm just going to pet it where I want it to go because I don't need a ton of icing. It's just a little bit of glue for what our sheep's wool is going to be. Ta-da! So our sheep's wool today is going to be marshmallows, which I love marshmallows on cupcakes, so I'm very excited about this. But you are going to cover this in marshmallows. I do recommend leaving a spot for your sheep's face, so if you still have one of these around, you can place it on your cupcake so you remember that's where you're going to put your face. If you forget to leave room for a face, it is okay. We can just take off a couple marshmallows later. But it's up to you how you want to put these on here. So if you're not a big marshmallow fan, I recommend that you cut them in half and then cut them in half this way. So then your sheep's wool won't be as poofy, but you won't have as many marshmallows to eat if you do it like that. And then it's up to you how you put them on. I personally like to put them on like this. But if you want, you can put them on like this instead. It's just design preference. Whatever one you like better. Or if you cut them in half and like that better, go ahead and cover your cupcake in them except for where we're going to put that face. Ta-da! So now I am going to go ahead and take off this circle. And then I personally take the tip off of my black icing just for a little bit. And I just hold it right here and I make a blob. Then I'm going to put it back on. And I'm going to draw my 4 legs. You can add a tail if you want. I usually don't. But I just come to the side and I just draw them down to the cupcake. Like my sheep is hugging it. And then I just did it without explaining it. But sometimes I feel like one line is a little too thin. So I usually double it up to make it a bit thicker. And then you can hold it on top of your blob, do a 1, 2, and lift up to have some little ears. And now you have options. So you can either rinse this tip out and put it on your white, which we will just need it for 2 circles, and then put it back on your black icing. Or you can take a marshmallow and cut a little bit of it off. It's about this much. Rip it in half and actually mush them up into little circles. And so I just place those on. Then I take my black icing and I make my pupils. Which again, you could do that with the white icing if you want. I just recommend that you rinse it out all the way, put it on your white, and then rinse it out again and put it on your black icing. So if you don't feel like that lifestyle like I do today, you can just use a marshmallow. But there we go, you guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next one, which is going to be a penguin, because they're so cute. So, I personally like to do the same thing we did with our bluebird, where you make a light blue. You can just put blue icing down, though, if you want, but I am going to just add some blue And then a little bit of white, just a little. I want this one a little bit more bluey. And you can also do this really cool thing to where we don't mix it together all the way, but instead just start smearing it to where you have this kind of tie-dye vibe going on, which I think makes it look icy. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to drag it in different directions, trying to keep both colors. I'm getting a lot of blue on my spatula, so I'm going to wipe it off. That way I'm not completely covering up the white icing I have on there. Ta-da! Yes! And I'm going to set it aside. So we have black fondant, and I'm going to open it the same way I did as the red. So this time when we cut it, we want about this much. So again, about 1/4 of it for a penguin. And then I like to make one big penguin, but you could rip this in half and make 2 tiny penguins for your cupcake instead if you'd like. Either way, how you make them is the same. So if you want 2 tiny ones, you can do 2 tiny ones, or you can just do one big one like I'm going to do. So I'm going to mush it up. And then I am going to roll it into a ball. I'm not going to mosquito squash it, but I'm going to boop it. Boop. Then I'm going to pinch it to make it a little longer. And then I take my thumb like this, so I'm not quite at the top of it, but almost, and make an indentation. And then I'm going to pinch it again. So it looked like a funky toe, and then I pinched my toe. Then with my scissors on the side, I'm not going to cut my fondant in half, which if you do, you can just reball it and reshape it. So if you do cut it in half, it's totally fine. But I'm just going in like this. And I cut that. And then I am going to come to the other side and do it. So you can leave them like that. But again, I like the kind of cartoon and silly. And there used to be a video game company, Snowblind, that they had a penguin as their intro. And he would come out and go, wah, 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 wah. And that definitely made an impression. So I like to flip them up like he's doing in my mind. And then I'm going to get my white icing. And it doesn't, if you don't want to put a tip on this, you don't have to. You can just squeeze some white icing in here and shape it. Or I recommend rinsing out this star tip and putting it on your white icing, and you can do some cute little poofs. So I'm actually going to do that. So I'm going to, but if you don't want to do that, you can just put a dot of white icing in your indentation and then just move it around a little bit to cover up the indentation. It's an option if you don't want to rinse it out, but I'm going to go ahead and rinse mine out, so I'll be right back. So as your icing gets low, you can push the top of it and then treat it like toothpaste and fold it down. That way it's pushing everything down and keeping that pressure, so it's going to be easier to squeeze. But I'm just going to fill in my indentation with some poofs. I'm going to do more of a 1. And then I usually put 2 towards the top because I like that cartoon heart shape that they do for penguins. And I'm going to move some of these little icing tails. I'm just lightly pushing them into the center. Like these. And then I personally take a teeny tiny corner of black fondant, teeny tiny, rip it in half, and roll it into 2 little balls to use as my eyes, but you could use the black icing instead if you wanted to. But I'm going to do the fondant eyes, and it's the same thing with the spacing. The closer they are together, the more cutesy cartoony they will look. I've got my penguin here. I'm personally going to rinse out my black icing, the round tip, and put it on my orange. You could use the star tip if you wanted. It'll make your nose way bigger, and if you want to add some feet, it'll also make those bigger. But I am going to use the round one because my penguin is kind of small. So if you made 2 penguins, I definitely recommend that you use the small one, the round tip. So I'm going to go rinse mine out, and I'll be right back. So for my nose, I put it right under my eyes, and I just make a little blob in the same spot. and stop and pull so it gives it this tiny little point. And then I put my penguin on my cupcake. I like to have them in the center. And I give them a good push. And then I'm going to do 2 more for little feet. And we have a penguin, you guys. Yes! Which, if you want this to look more sparkly, like ice, if you have some granulated sugar at home, you could sprinkle a little bit of that onto your cupcake and then like to get it to stick in place, and it'll make it look sparkly. So if you need a little extra oomph for your penguin, I recommend, if you have granulated sugar at home, putting that on the cupcake. It'll make your cupcake really sweet, but it gives it a cool like icy frosty effect that I think is neat. But penguins! Awesome! So now we are on our last cupcake design of the day, you guys, but this is honestly one of my go-to cupcakes to make for people. I just think it's super cute and fun. We're gonna make a dog. Like, what? Like, of course we have a cat, we need a dog. I have a dog and a cat, so we need a dog and a cat cupcake. So pick out whichever one feels like a dog. And it's finally time for our yellow icing, because we're gonna use a lot of yellow icing. We're probably gonna use all this yellow on our dogs. And we are going to use the one tip we haven't used yet, which is my all-time absolute favorite decorating tip ever, the grass tip. But we're not using it for grass today. We're using it for fur. It's super, I love it. It really is my favorite tip. So let's take the seal off. Put on the grass tip. It's the only one we haven't used, but it's the one with all the little holes in it that looks like a thimble. Ooh. I'm not really sure how I did that there, but all right. See, this is why we have a towel. So you don't want to press this right onto your cupcake and squeeze, because if you do, nothing really happens. It makes a blob. So you're going to hold it a little above, squeeze 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, stop and lift up to get this fur effect. Now, a lot of people for some reason have the tendency to dip back down before they lift up. So if you're not getting these shapes, think stop and up. You can also keep squeezing as you lift up to make it a bit more floppy. So whichever one you like best, go ahead and cover the whole top of the cupcake in that. So now we need black fondant, but not a lot. We are creating the illusion of a snout. So we need our note, like the dog cupcake looks more like a dog if you do this part where it actually has a snout sticking out. So we're only going to take about that much. We're going to mush it up, roll it into a ball, and then you can either leave it a ball. What I like to do is I like to cube it. Just make it a square, but you can also set this down and tap it with the sides of your spatula or butter knife to also square it out. And then for the dog, I don't put this in the center. I actually put it more towards the bottom. And then we're going to cover this up. So I'm just going to do the little poofs all over it. Even on the sides. We are covering it completely with our yellow icing. Ta-da! So now I'm going to take 2 black sixlets for the ice. Again, you can use your black icing instead if you want. Same thing with the spacing, but I put them almost at my nose. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to keep squeezing and go back and forth as I squeeze to make ears. So I start at the top, squeeze, squeeze, about 2 or 3 times. And then we need a little bit more black fondant, just a little, so another little sliver. And honestly, I probably only need half of this, so this could be for your other dog. We're going to mush it up, roll it into a ball, and then this time I am going to squash it. And then I either take my scissors or a toothpick, and I make 2 little holes in my fondant for the nostrils. There we go. And then I set that on top of my nose. And you can leave your dog just like this, is cute either way, but I want a tongue. So it's about the same amount of fondant we just cut, but for red. You don't need a lot, just a very thin sliver. Mush it up. And then I'm going to roll it, and then I'm going to tube snake it just a little bit, kind of like with our cow earlier. Just a little, and then I'm going to flatten it. And you can leave it like this, or I take my scissors and I make an indentation, and I stick it right here. So hopefully he does not fall while I show you, but there we go, you guys. And that is it, you guys. That is the animal cupcake kit. High five. And that is it, you guys. That is the animal cupcake kit. Yes! Thank you so much for coming today. I hope that you had fun, and I hope you enjoy eating your lovely creations. And speaking of your creations, if you would like to share your photos with us, you can go to our website, which is mymakestudio.com, and click on the Chef Chayla tab, and there'll be an option for you to upload your photos so we can see them, and then you will get to be part of our Bakers Club and get a certificate from me. So if you would like to share your creations, please feel free to do so. Just go to the Chef Chayla tab and you'll be able to upload them. One of my favorite things about all of this is just like, in my world, like cakes and cupcakes are just art that you can eat. Like it's edible art. That's so awesome. And art is unique just like you are. And you guys always like put your own spins and personalities into your creations just like with art. And I think that is so cool, and I love seeing what you guys do with them. So if you would like to share, I always love to see them, and you can be part of the Bakers Club and all that jazz. But also if you're like, no, these are mine. You don't have to share your cupcakes if you don't want to. There is no pressure for you to do so. Either way, I'm happy you're here. But if you would like to share your cupcakes, you totally can. And if you do go to our website, which is mymakestudio.com, you can look at our other kits. Like we have another animal kit. We also have some round cake kits and some square cake kits. So if you need some more decoration in your life, like check out what else we have. And then if you would like to follow any of our social medias to just kind of see what's going on in the world of My Make Studio, all of our socials are at My Make Studio. So our Facebook and our Instagram are at My Make Studio, and those are good places to follow for new and upcoming things and just stuff that we have going on in our worlds. And then we also have a TikTok, which is at My Make Studio, and the TikTok is more of like a mix of like what's going on with us and like a dive into my world. Like if you want to see how I did this hair or this makeup, there's a video on that. Want to see my dog being weird? There's a video on that. If you want to see some cool decoration videos, our Instagram and our Facebook usually has those too. So if you want to follow any of the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are at My Make Studio. And if you need more decoration in your life or want to share your pictures, just go to our website, which is mymakestudio.com. But now that all that is done, I know that I have already said it. But again, thank you so much for coming today. I really do hope that you had a good time, and I do hope that you enjoy eating your lovely creations. And as always, everybody, stay creative.